Good morning, sixth grade. I hope that you're doing well. So, the next book that we're reading, that you may have already started reading, chapter one, is The Giver. The Giver was written by Lois Lowry in 1993, and you may have heard of that author before because she's written a lot of books that you may have read, one of which being Number the Stars. Lois Lowry wrote a lot of books that I read when I was a kid. She wrote the Anastasia series, which was one of my favorites when I was your age. She has won the Newbery Medal twice, one of which being for The Giver, and she was born in 1937. So just a little bit of background about Lois Lowry. She was born in Hawaii, as I mentioned, in 1937. Looks like she's just celebrated a birthday last week. She moved around the world a lot. Her father was in the Army, and so that really gave her a lot of information and a lot of different topics for her to write about. Her books have addressed a number of topics, including adoption, mental illness, the Holocaust, and futuristic societies. Futuristic societies is the one that The Giver is going to focus on quite a bit. So some of the works that you may have heard of, A Summer to Die, which she wrote in 1977. That one dealt with cancer. I remember reading that one when I was a kid. Anastasia Again, and Anastasia Has the Answers. Those are some of the books from the Anastasia series that I loved when I was about your age. And then, of course, The Giver in 1993. See You Around, Sam, she wrote in 1996. That's one that I've not read. And, of course, a lot of you are familiar with Number the Stars. So as we start out with The Giver, I want you to imagine we're in the classroom. If we were in the classroom, what I would do for this lesson is I would have different colored pieces of paper taped around the classroom. I'd have a blue one on one wall, an orange piece of paper on another wall, a red one, and a purple one. So think for a minute about blue. I want you to think of all your favorite things that are blue. Some of the ones that come to my mind are blueberries, some flowers that are blue. I really like the color blue, but just imagine everything you like that's blue. Now think of some things that you care about that are red. Apples are red. Lots of different kinds of berries are red. Again, red flowers, red cars, even clothing. You could have a favorite red shirt. I bet some of you have red as your favorite color. Take a minute and think of things that are purple. I think of this time of year in the spring, all of the buds on the trees. A lot of those are purple. So many beautiful things that we can find in nature that are purple. Take a minute and think about yellow. The yellow sun, yellow flowers, just yellow all around us. So now I want you to think about all those different colors and all those things and imagine that there are no colors. Everything looks the same. There might be slight variations of light and dark, but for the most part, everything looks the same. So this is a world that is devoid of any color, and not just devoid of color, devoid of emotion. Imagine a world where there's no music. There's no change of seasons, no hot summers or cool winters, no traditional holidays, no expressions of emotion, no real sadness, no tears, but also no happiness, no real true heartfelt joy. And imagine a world where there's no memories, where you can't remember or learn anything about the past. Think about all the stuff that you learned in social studies this year and in past years. Imagine you haven't learned any of that. So there's no memories, either positive or negative. No memories for the whole society. Welcome to the world of the giver. Those are some of the characteristics that we're going to see in this book. And the giver is part of the picture that I'm showing you right now shows 3 books, but there's actually 4 now. Another one has been written since this was made. It's part of a quartet of books which are featuring the lives of the characters throughout time. So they're not exactly sequels to The Giver. Gathering Blue is the next book, but it does follow some of the characters through their lives. Here's a little bit of an overview of the plot. This will help you as you are understanding and just figuring out what's going on. So it's a science fiction story. It is about a 12-year-old boy who must choose between this world of sameness or a world that is like ours, that is filled with both intense joys and pain. Jonas lives in the perfect world. It doesn't have any wars, it doesn't have any fighting, there's no strife, there's no conflict. So in those ways, it's perfect. When Jonas begins training for his assignment, his job that he's going to do for his life as the receiver of memory, he meets his teacher, and his teacher is called the Giver. So as I've mentioned, our main character is Jonas, and he is a 12-year-old boy, or he turns 12 early on in this book. He receives his assignment along with everyone else in his age group. And he is amazed that his assignment is to become the receiver of memory. He has the most important, or at least the most respected job out of everyone, where he is supposed to hold all the memories of all civilization. So, what is the giver? We need to talk a little bit about utopias and dystopias. You may have heard of these words, or they may be brand new to you right now. So, in a utopian society, Lois Lowry has created people who don't want to be burdened with memories, people who don't want to make decisions anymore, they don't want to make changes, they don't want to be burdened with making these decisions because in the past they've led to bad things happening. So instead, they've assigned one person to keep all of these memories of history all to themselves. All of society, all of civilization's memories are held with that one person. And the setting, it seems to be ideal. It seems to be perfect. The weather is perfect. There's a special job which is especially perfect for each and every person. It appears that the elderly and the babies are lovingly cared for, and there seems to be much joy and laughter. Some of the themes that are going to come up in this book are the importance of memory. Memory is essential. It's important to every civilization. You've probably heard that we can learn from our mistakes by looking back into history. So the Committee of Elders designates a receiver of memory, and this receiver remembers the whole history of everyone for the community. Another theme is the relationship between pain and pleasure, because there can be no pleasure really without pain, and there can be no pain without pleasure. As we go through the book, we'll introduce some other themes, but those are a couple to think on as you're beginning to read the book. So now let's talk a little bit about utopias and dystopias. Utopia comes from 2 Greek words, oi, which means not, and topos, which means place, nowhere. So the word was created all the way back in 1516 by Thomas More when he wrote a book that he called Utopia. And some utopian concepts. A utopia is it's like a perfect society, a beautiful society. There's no violence, there's no war, people live in peace. They have taken out poverty, they've taken out misery, and they need very few laws because people do what they're supposed to do. People live together in harmony. Money is not necessary, and people do the work that they enjoy, and it benefits the common good. So common good means everything that they do works together so that for the good of everyone in the community. In Christianity, this is similar to what we would believe about the Garden of Eden before the fall, or kind of thoughts that we have about heaven, where heaven is a perfect place, where everything is just right and there's no fighting. But it's not always so. The opposite of a utopia is a dystopia. And a dystopia is an imaginary place where people are not really human. They've been dehumanized, and they often have fearful lives. It's often thought of as a worst-case scenario for our society. Some concepts or characteristics of a dystopian society would be a totalitarian dictatorship where the government has like ultimate control over everyone, a glorification and a justification of violence, a place where technology replaces humanity, and there are negative trends, negative social trends, and they can be taken to extremes. You can see in the pictures below that there are some movies that you've probably seen that fit into the dystopian concepts. In literature, dystopian literature is often futuristic, taking place in the future. And dystopias can serve as warnings to you and to me, and sometimes can kind of comment on things going on in current society. So utopian and dystopian societies are often present in science fiction literature. A utopia refers to a perfect society that does not exist and can never exist. A dystopia is usually characterized by this totalitarian society. And again, a totalitarian society, it refers to a society where everything is guided by the government or by the state, where people don't really have free will. And some characteristics of a dystopian society are a poor standard of living for the lower and the middle classes, a protagonist that questions society. And we've talked a lot about protagonists. They are the main character in the story who are the hero of the story, the one who is trying to solve the problems. And they can be often set in the future, but still resemble contemporary society. On this screen, you'll see some very famous dystopian novels. 1984, which is one that many of you will read by the time you get out of college. I know my daughter had to read it as a junior in high school this year. Pleasantville, and then the third one here is AI, standing for Artificial Intelligence. Here is another dystopian society. Some of you may have seen this movie, The Matrix. That is an example of a dystopian society. And a couple others. Some of you will recognize these, The Hunger Games, and a few others too. All right, so thinking about this, a dystopia in the making. What if no one ever had to go to school? Not like now, not like how we're having school virtually, but just didn't have to go at all. What if you could have like an iPod in your brain and your computer really could read your thoughts? What if no one had to pay taxes? If everyone had plastic surgery? If babies were scientifically created? These are all some ideas that have come to light in different dystopian novels. In The Giver, I want you to think while you read. Think about the character development. Think about examples of how society is either a utopia or a dystopia. I want you to look for foreshadowing, hints of what's to come. Of course, think of the major plot elements. Look for symbolism, examples of things which stand for something bigger. And I want you to continue to think about those themes that I mentioned at the beginning, as well as other themes that we've talked about this year. All right, there's a 15-minute time limit on these videos, and so I may have gone through this a little quickly, but there will be another one. Have a great day. Bye.